panning.
And I'm setting the timer so that you.
How many of you wake up every morning and think to yourself, gee, this current situation we have with everybody driving a car is really going to cause a big cataclysm one day. I wish there was some way I could solve it. Well, there is. In fact, there is one perfectly sensible solution to this epidemic of automobiles, which can be solved by public transportation in the form of trains, buses, monorails, subways, anything like that. And public transportation is much more preferable than everybody owning their own car for several reasons. Because due to excessive emissions and the excessive use of fossil fuels and the general dangers associated with driving, public transport is a much greater form of transportation than everyone owning their own automobile. First of all, we'll talk about the emissions that a car creates when it runs its internal combustion engine. When a car runs, it produces several gases like CO, CO2, and we are all very familiar with these as we've heard many environmentalist speeches and we've all heard of Al Gore and such. And so, first of all, when our car emits exhaust, it is first of all pollution. We've all probably seen famous pictures from, for example, Beijing, where people actually are riding on their bicycles and wearing a surgical mask. And this is because the air is so dense with smog due to air pollution. And a big contributor to this air pollution is, in fact, the emissions from the car's exhaust system. Another problem that arises from emissions is the notorious issue of global warming. Now, global warming is when greenhouse gases, such as CO2, permeate the atmosphere and trap the heat from the sun, and as a result, heat up the Earth's temperature, and people say icebergs will eventually melt, and then the water levels will rise, and then everywhere will be underwater, and a giant cataclysm will occur. While that may sound a bit over the top and serious, it's a definite possibility, and with the amount of CO2 that cars emit from their engine, this could be severely cut down by having public transportation, because public transportation would take more cars off the road and put more people onto one mode of transportation, and thus lessening emissions. And also, another issue with cars is many of you have probably heard tragic stories of death when someone suffocates to death in their car from being from standing still in traffic, or from being in their garage and leaving it on, because cars actually also emit carbon dioxide, especially if maybe the exhaust system is broken or the engine is flooded. You could have this gas come into your car and it would suffocate you because it is odorless and colorless, so you don't know it's there, and it's a very potent killer. And with public transportation, which would more likely not shut down like a car would, or have these gases permeate the car's interior, public transportation would lessen deaths from carbon monoxide, because more people would be on one large vehicle or mode of transportation that most likely A, won't stall, and B, emit carbon monoxide. My second point is concerning fossil fuels. Now, cars, as everyone who drives knows, use up a lot of fuel. You have to go to the gas station every week or so and fill it up for quite a bit of money and drive around, and it's depleted very quickly, especially in the car-centric environment of our modern world. And with the depletion of these fuels, eventually one day these fuels could become less or completely unavailable to us, and if that, as a result of that, we would have to alter our entire way of life, the entire world as we know it, because we would lose an important, vital fuel source that accounts for many things more than just petroleum, such as things like plastic and things we take for granted every day. And with the ubiquity of cars, this fuel source could be depleted entirely. And if we would want to conserve resources, it would be much to our advantage to switch to a federally funded or state funded form of public transportation that will reduce these emissions, or reduce the use of fossil fuels, and as a result, eventually help out with our world's resources and conserve what we have left of fossil fuels. And also, on a more individual level, the average person could save a lot of money by using public transportation. For example, for just $100 maybe, buy a bus card that'll last you a year, instead of every week paying $30, which, as all of you know, adds up very quickly. And public transportation in the end could save you as well as the world money. And now my third point is that the dangers associated with normal driving, with everyone owning their own car, is very great and could be very much reduced by public transportation. And there would be less drunk driving, for example. People could go to a bar and just take the bus home, and that would result in less wrecks in general, because there would be less cars on the road. So, in conclusion, if we switch to public transportation, it could reduce emissions, therefore reducing pollution and preventing global warming. We could conserve our precious fossil fuels and save everyone money, as well as reduce the dangers of normal driving. So, in the end, public transportation is much more preferable than everybody owning their own personal car.